The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams on Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle to the end zone. Whoa. Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. It picks. Nickel Roby Coleman throws. End zone caught. Touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Woods, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA! No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebukam. Picked off. Marcus Peters. Strutting his stuff. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. He picked off Dak Prescott into Seattle territory, into the clear. 30, 20, Farrell Cooper 10. Farrell Cooper at the goal line.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand.
Todd Gurley, 20, 10. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 142. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, joined here by my buddy Joe Curley. And we got the Rams-Eagles preview show and some celebration. I don't know what to call it. I'm just really happy that Jamil Demby is back in a Rams uniform.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I don't know why we didn't drop everything and have a celebratory podcast for Jamil's triumphant return to Los Angeles. Good for him, and obviously good for the Rams' long-term outlook because they had a plan and now it's back together again.
Well, and at the same time, I would almost say, luck's good, isn't it, Joe? If the Lions wanted to, they easily could have kept him, right. And they put him on the practice squad. And I don't know if you remember who was released from the active roster for it, but it's all a full circle thing. Because the guy who was released was none other than former Rams receiver Bradley Marquez. Wow. So pretty crazy. But originally, for those of you who don't know, the former offensive line coach at Maine for Jamil Demby was the main reason that he stayed with Detroit. The Rams did consider signing him to their practice squad, or at least tried to, and he decided to stay where it was comfortable with his offensive line coach. Well, he then got signed off because I think Aaron Kromer was done with the whole, the fact that the Lions stole him from the Rams' clutches. I think he came out and said that, I believe. So something along those lines.
It's a little fortuitous that Tom Hatfield gets injured, opens up a roster spot. The Rams. Remember now, this is the Rams coming off a night in which their interior of their offensive line got absolutely dominated. So maybe they start to see the mortality of guys like Sullivan, and figure out that they got to make the move sooner rather than later to make sure that in the off season they've got Demby on the roster. And certainly when he was drafted, it looked like Jamil. He was one of my favorite guys to watch during OTAs. I was impressed with him in practice, and I think Rams fans should be excited that he's back in the fold.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. They had 7 linemen on their roster. Now they're up to they had 6, I believe. Now they're up to 7, which is still like the lowest total offensive linemen on the team I've seen in a long time. I mean, this is the same team that kept 12 offensive linemen at one point. So, That's almost unheard of. But no, after that game, I definitely could see why they did it. I think it's safe to say that the Rams are going to need to up their game a little bit after the Bears game for sure. Offensive line, I mean, everybody is going to need to kind of ante it up, but the Rams gain somebody, the Eagles lose somebody, and they lose somebody big. Carson Wentz, their second overall pick in the 2016 draft, who pretty much tortured the Rams last year, 4 touchdowns until he tore his ACL. He has a fractured vertebrae and is likely out for the year. Really unfortunate in that regard, because, I was talking about this with Blaine, because Joe, we talk about this all the time, but like Blaine and I literally met through our love for Carson Wentz in the draft. So, it's kind of, it sucks because, just being a fan of the NFL in general, you don't like to see, big time names like that go down, but it really stinks because, I'm a huge Andrew Luck fan, and I'm starting to wonder, is Carson Wentz going to suffer the same fate as Andrew Luck? And the thing is, Andrew Luck right now is the top 5 quarterback in the league, arguably. But my gripe here is now Carson Wentz is losing more time, whereas Jared Goff, who's 2 years younger to begin with, isn't. So, Jared Goff is really starting to shape up and look like the better pick. I know coming off his worst game of his career, it's funny saying that, but when you look at just the terms of, the best ability is availability, Jared Goff, man, he's not missed a game. He came out one game, in the middle of it when it was interim coached by Bones Fossil. I believe that was a primetime game against Seattle Thursday night, and Sherman hit him helmet to helmet almost, or so, close to that, and he got concussed. And I mean, that was towards the end of the game too. So that's the only time Jared Goff has left the field.
That's a inarguable point. Jared Goff certainly has been on the field more than Carson Wentz, and I think Carson Wentz is every time he checks the schedule from here on out, he's gonna hope that there's no more trips to Los Angeles, because the first one, destroys his knee. Before the second one even arrives, his back gives out on him. I mean, those are two, pretty significant injuries. So, shame that, we're still in a position where, we've been waiting for these Goff-Wentz kind of showdowns, and we haven't gotten all the way through there. And now, Rams fans, for Nick Foles, a lot happened, obviously, off that play last year at the Coliseum, and a lot. We'll see what he looks like this weekend. It's but again, it's a shame that Carson Wentz isn't available, and he hasn't had a very good year. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you have the knee injury, and it takes a year to come back from it, and you're not really the same until a year after that. So, but if this back becomes a complicating thing, and certainly they haven't done well since they lost Frank Reich. So, but crazy how,
and Coach Flip.
Yeah, well, rest in peace. Since he just lost his job, but
future Rams quarterback coach.
That was what I texted. Oh no, it was the other one. Was I meant? Okay, anyway. So, yeah, but that's I don't know. We'll see this weekend if the Eagles have anything left. I honestly, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but on Twitter, Emmanuel Acho,
I did see it.
He actually, he called out the
training
Eagles,
staff.
Training staff, and to me, I'm seeing striking similarities to what Andrew Luck went through. I think they rushed him back way too early, And then, the undisclosed, it was the skiing incident or something. He hurt his shoulder, and they didn't really want to let anybody know that. But it's nothing like that yet. But Carson Wentz, and you could tell all year, just wasn't 100%. And now this injury, I mean, I know, it's a torn ACL, but when you have other injuries, you're overcompensating just to stay afloat with those injuries. And so I do think, Wentz's play style puts himself in serious jeopardy to, suffer an injury like this. And it's just really unfortunate because I don't know. I mean, what was the rush to start Wentz when really the best you've seen out of Wentz, I think, is a 3-touchdown, 1-interception performance. And in reality, you have Nick Foles coming off a Super Bowl win. So I kind of feel like it was almost a disservice to Nick Foles to get him out of there as quickly as they did. As much as I don't like Foles, I mean, I won't say I don't like him, but I don't think he's like a legit quarterback. I don't think, part of me feels like that was a fluke, but at the same time, you have to give him the respect. He beat the Rams last year. He won the games necessary. He made the throws in the Super Bowl. And, I just look at it like, why were they so quick to, switch away from their Super Bowl savior and throw Carson Wentz under the microscope with a torn ACL?
Right.
Coming back from
if you think about it, it was 10 months.
I mean, it was.
I know
reckless.
things are improving, and it's no longer the full year. It's now tighter. We had a local kid around here who was one of the better quarterbacks. Actually, still holds the county record for touchdown in a season. Jay Constantine, who would have been a Pac-12 quarterback this year, but in the last game of last season, he tore his ACL. And so he ended up at Boise State, and I figured he'd redshirt. And he ends up starting the season at Boise State and takes him to the second round, third round of the NCAA playoffs. I thought it was crazy that he had even less time, or about the same time, actually, about 10 months as Wentz. I know it's the NFL, and if you look at the numbers, Foles actually, had a decent second game. Against Tampa Bay, although again, it was obviously against Tampa Bay, but he had a rough opener, and then maybe they rushed him back because they didn't like the look of the offense, or maybe they even rushed him back. Maybe under the current medical, it's hard to draw a line between the knee injury and the back injury, but certainly he hasn't been as good this year as last year. Obviously. Jared Goff and Carson Wentz will be forever linked, but maybe they're just not fated to play a full game together. And I learned my lesson last year not to ridicule Nick Foles. So, we may not have any idea what he's going to be able to come to the Coliseum with, but and they may not have DiFilippo and Reich to scheme it up like they did in the playoffs last year. But I guess I'm in a position now where I can't count Nick Foles out. So we'll see what happens. But certainly storylines abound for Sunday Night Football for sure.
Oh, certainly. The Rams, they lost last year to this team. Not the same exact team. Obviously, they're battered and injured and everything, but they lost 43-35 at home, 2017. So, that ended up going on to be the biggest loss of the year, I think. You look at the Vikings loss, it sucked, but the Eagles loss really changed everything. It gave the Eagles the first round bye pretty much, and pretty much sent the Rams to the cellar. So they got the third seed, but they really, as you saw, really could have used that bye.
Yeah, I think it certainly, and it also stemmed their momentum. They were, probably the best team in football. at that time they're playing as well as anybody, I should probably say, and that loss, it gave them a little bit of mortality, and they really didn't reach the heights after that. They kind of plateaued, I think, after that loss. And maybe it was just the feeling of losing to a backup in a big spot like that. But, certainly the Rams owe these Eagles coming in on Sunday.
That they do, and I'm sure, the one thing that many Rams fans have stick in their head is, when all the Eagles, and including Chris Long, tried to jump into their stands, and, that didn't really sit well with them. There was a little bit of a debate who was wrong, Chris or the fan. Personally, I thought the fan was kind of, he was holding his ground, I guess, but at the same time, the whole cursing and flipping him off. I mean, I get you probably just lost the game. That was, pretty obvious, but I don't know, just to do that, I wanted to flip off the guy that, gave his heart and soul to, this same organization, when they were nowhere near as competitive as they were in that game. So that was just, my 2 cents. But, regardless of that, the Eagles, we'll start with them. I'm thinking of a new format, so we're going to roll it out. New format for the preview podcast. So we'll start with the Eagles. With Carson Wentz out, what can we expect from Nick Foles? Because, Joe, we've seen it before. Nick Foles has been extremely limited in the passing game and in the overall offensive game plan in games, say, the Atlanta Falcons game in the playoffs last year. You saw him come in and they let him throw the ball down the field against the Rams. The Rams couldn't stop him. We've seen Nick Foles have to, take it the distance, go for the, the big play, and in the Super Bowl, and it worked to Alshon Jeffrey. So he's capable of that since we've seen it. Where do you see him? How do you see him playing against the Rams?
Honestly, I'm kind of lost. I don't quite know, what to think. Whether it's, so much it's so sudden, and so much has changed, and this Eagles team really is so, they're just not what they were. They kind of have all these weapons all over the place, and it doesn't make a ton of sense. And whether it's the new running back or, I feel like this is like classic, second, year after hangover sort of stuff where like they've got plenty of talent. They've got a lot of what they had last year, and just like the magic that they had last year just isn't coming together. And now they've got this injury again, and they're, got 1 foot out of the playoffs. They're basically, have no more, they're kind of back against the wall. Their franchise player is on the shelf, and, in some ways it's a little reminiscent to last year. When they, they have the injury and it looks, everybody, including me, kind of writes them off. But I think they just don't, they certainly have lost a lot of kind of brain power, with a lot of the guys that have been in that coach's room. And, you wonder if Doug Peterson can kind of do it, on his own, but, or not on his own, but, with a new group. And I don't know, honestly, I have, not to bring up fantasy football, but I have wins in a couple leagues. And so I'm in a couple deep leagues where there's not a lot in the wire. So I had to have the same conversation kind of with myself today as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And rather than pick up Foles, I made some really, some decisions I'd rather not have made. So I honestly, I have no idea what to expect.
Did you pick up Josh Johnson
Foles this weekend? I did not go that far, but I did pick up Josh Allen. So,
okay.
Which was very painful. And, he was, so yeah, in a league that means a lot to me, in which I've been killing, and, had kind of, it's going to be really embarrassing if I don't make the final in this league. So, I had one of those really existential fantasy crises earlier today where I didn't quite know what the hell to do. And I came really close to rolling with Nick Foles, but then again, there's just no data. There's just, it's just out of the blue. And if you look at the 2 games he played this year, he was super up and down in those games. And the team themselves they've changed so much without him. And in the meantime, with Alshon Jeffrey's been super up and down, and they've added Golden Tate, but it's kind of taken away a little bit from what they had going with the tight ends. And Zach Ertz is having this incredible year, but now he's got that's one way that they're probably similar, because they've replaced Trey Burton with Dallas Goedert, and Goedert's kind of coming on as the season's kind of evolving. But there's been a couple times this year where I thought the Eagles are going to put their foot down and start a run and start looking like the world champs again. And really they, for the most part, have looked like a one-year wonder. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a really good chance the Rams kind of make the statement this weekend and blow them out and, get their mojo back. I think that's probably the likely of all the results. But honestly, this is one of those games where it's been a long time since I've kind of been more scattered with my, opinion and not quite had a finger on this, because I just think that the Eagle, the Rams are in a vulnerable state coming off, their big loss, and the Eagles are in a position where you just don't know what to expect. So, I think anything can happen Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams can really. This game could go a myriad of different directions. I look at this game and I think, this could very well be the game that, skyrockets what the Rams can be. You come off a really bad loss, and then, this game you find your rhythm, and I just feel like this could be like the Kickstarter. Like, the Eagles used their win against the Rams last year to just run roughshod through everybody. And I almost think at the same time, the Eagles might have had that debilitating loss where, it's kind of put up or shut up. This is your season on the line. So they lose on a deflected pass where they easily could have picked it, and it goes right into Amari Cooper's hands. And that's the end of overtime. So,
and lose to that Cowboys team, too.
That's the thing, is did it wake up the Eagles, or are they going to lay down? To me, I think the Rams are going to get the Eagles' best fight. I just don't know how good that fight is. I mean, I don't know how good the Eagles are this year. I mean, when people are like, well, the record doesn't really indicate. No, the record indicates it. I used to say this.
Right.
I used to say
they are what
things,
they are at this point.
Back when Fisher was the head coach, because as a fan, you don't want to admit when your team's just not very good. Oh well, we almost lost. We were in one score games, 10 out of the 11 losses we had, but at the same time, you were in 10 one-score games, and the 11 losses you had, those were 10 losses.
If this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, we'd be 8-4. But you're 4-8. If this happened, exactly. At this point, it's the middle of December. You are what you are, and I think, any rational, and there may not be many of them out there, but any rational Eagles fan can kind of look at their team and be like, hey. This is where we are. This is what we are. And, there's a lot of times these franchises make a breakthrough, and then, it takes, it almost like they take like a small step back the next year, and then maybe we'll learn a lot more about what this franchise is and who the Eagles are next year when they bounce back. But, the Rams have a big opportunity to, provide the death knell to, to this defending champion. And they really have to do everything they can to provide it and use it as a springboard to get back on top and continue to put pressure on the Saints to try to, win back home field. I mean, that's every win, they got to win out. This is the last real, tough game they got left. And that's why, getting this result on Sunday night is paramount.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the best way to put it. It's really funny, Joe, because before the year started, one of the biggest issues with the Rams hype that people had is how are they going to look with a first place schedule? And, I took notice of that, and they've had it, and they're 11-2. The Eagles also have a first place schedule, and they're just not as good. They're 6-7, I believe. That, at the same time,
it's a great point.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's like, I could totally point the finger, at consistency, and just look at the third and the fourth seed of the playoffs last year in the NFC are the only ones that are guaranteed to make it. Whereas the Eagles, the 1 seed, are 6-7. The Vikings are at 6-1. They were the 2 seed. The Rams are 11-2 as the 3 seed, and then the Saints are 11-2. And then you had the Panthers and the Falcons. So the Panthers are falling off a cliff. So, I could totally, go down that path, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, yeah, the injuries did. I mean, they came in droves for the Eagles. I mean, they had receivers. Their newly traded for receiver, Golden Tate, they had him playing corner with the scout team. I mean, it was that bad, where they ran out of depth so quickly. Everyone started getting hurt. But at the same time, you can be decimated by injuries, but you still have to find a way to win. I mean, you're coming off a Super Bowl win. So you have to at least, because the key is, Joe, it's just like the, March Madness. Once you get in the big dance, anything can happen. So
right.
For the Eagles, all they need to do is just get in, and we'll find out. Because then all you have to do is really string together 3 or 4 wins in a row to win a Super Bowl. So, if you can do that, that's the thing. You just got to get there. And this is a huge roadblock for them because, last year they beat the Rams. I'm sure the Rams have that in their head, although it's a little bit of a different roster, but still. 2, it's on the road for the Eagles, so it's going to be tough. 3, they just lost their leader in Wentz, so, that stings. And 4, they're just not as productive as, this is a team, the way people talked about them coming in the year. I actually had, truthfully, Joe, before the season started, I had the Rams, I had the Saints, I had the Packers, I had the Giants, I had, I believe, the Falcons, and then there was another team I'm forgetting. But I didn't have the Eagles or the Vikings making the playoffs. I felt like there was too many question marks for the Eagles. They're playing a lot worse than I expected them to, for sure, but I felt there was too many question marks. And, Joe, it amazes me how quick people were to, right off the Rams locker room situation, which people made a situation, which it wasn't, but commend Haloti Ngata, being like this game-changing signing with Michael Bennett, and, not really look at the fact that, the Rams added Sue and Talib and Peters and all of them, and more so look at the off-the-field aspect more than the on-the-field. I just feel like that was one of the things, and when you're a Super Bowl champion, those are the things that you get in your favor more often than not, I would say.
Sure. I cannot believe the team. I don't mean to hijack this, but I'm looking at the playoff picture. Can you tell me the team with the worst record in the NFL right now? This can't be. Hang on.
The team with the worst
No,
record?
it's just what I'm looking at. No, I think that's wrong. But the team with the Falcons are 4-9. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well, they've also...
The team that came into LA last year, won a playoff game, is a mess.
I guess that kind of shows you the different sides of the coin. We're harping on the Eagles, but is Doug Peterson doing a good job to keep them afloat at 6-7 and be in the playoff hunt with all the injuries? Are we overblowing it? Because when you look at what Dan Quinn is doing over in Atlanta, games that they should have won, they lost, and they had the injury
They have
bug.
the same record as the Bills and the Jets. They're only a game ahead of the Raiders, Niners, and Cardinals. Like, they're literally in the race for the number one pick. The Falcons.
Well, the thing I find
that
funny...
to me is shocking with what they've got.
The thing I find funny is I had the Giants making the playoffs before the season started. And now that they're... I feel like they're starting to really come
together a little bit.
Yeah, they can thank the Rams for just giving them Jamon Brown, but he's really helped big time for their offensive line.
Oh yeah,
and
settled that line.
He stabilized the offensive line, just his presence being in there over John Jerry. They have obviously the young stud and Will Hernandez, and they paid Solder so much, but it's funny, the Giants are sitting there at 5-8. They're the 12th team in the NFC, but I would give them more of a chance right now than the Panthers, who are 6-7, who are falling off a cliff, who have to play the Saints twice. So the NFC playoffs, really interesting. Everyone's still in it except for Arizona and San Francisco, and Atlanta.
Technically, I mean, the way you have to look at it is like the top six are on the edge of being in. Really, it's going to take, a real for the Cowboys or the Seahawks to fall out of there. It's going to take an act of God. I mean, they're really going to have to fall apart for, this Eagles team to win out and sneak in there. And that's, it really is just kind of like I said, they got, a foot in the bucket, and you just got to push them off the cliff.
Yeah, well, those teams are leaving, but Minnesota is in trouble. I mean. And I'll just say this because I got a lot of flack for some reason. I don't really know why, but I got a lot of flack for even mentioning John DeFilippo, even though half of the people that were complaining about it don't even know who he is. So the thing I find funny is that people think that, well, he was fired, so he's bad. Well, maybe he is the scapegoat of a greater problem in Minnesota. And maybe
Maybe it's the quarterback.
I don't like to go to, what ifs or things like that. But, I've heard some things. And I'm just going to say that. It's not been an easy year. They thought they were going to be a lot better. And they're not. So this is what happens when you spend a lot of money on a quarterback and you don't just solidify your offensive line. And when you look at the Saints and the Rams, what did they do? Solidify their offensive line. If you look at why Dak Prescott was able to even throw for 400-plus yards last week, yeah, the Eagles' secondary is suspect, but he also had all day to throw. So, offensive line is so key, and I think you're really seeing it with Minnesota. It's absolutely decimated their season, and what I said, day one, when they signed Kirk Cousins, I said they won't be as good as they were with Case Keenum. 1, you had stability. 2, it just worked. And 3, the pocket mobility. So
look at that the moving pieces with Minnesota and Washington and those big decisions and paying again, a couple years from now we're going to be talking about giving a quarterback an absolute mint of money and look at what who's this, even though Case Keenum wasn't the prized, who's in a better position at the quarterback position right now? Is it the Vikings with with what they have there? Is it, the Washington, who thought they were smart to move on and not pay him all that money and instead they backed up the Brinks truck for Alex Smith, who's now suffered a horrifying injury? Or is it the Broncos, who, despite having one of the great quarterbacks in NFL history as a GM, haven't been able to draft at that position, but they found a short-term answer, gave Case Keenum some money, and but they still have flexibility going forward and can come up, draft somebody. They had their quarterback that they drafted last year, behave himself out of the league by he got himself arrested, right? So, all three of those teams have been an absolute S show at the quarterback position this year, but the investment was less out of the Broncos, and they're going to be able to go in and try to figure something out, in the market in a year or two again. Whereas, the amount of sunk cap that Washington and Minnesota have in their big money quarterbacks, is going to set back those franchises for the foreseeable future, right?
Now, I'm going to say this. All three of those teams that you listed have a good defense, or have a defense. But Denver's is the only one where I'm actually worried about. It makes me change my game plan. For some reason this year, the Vikings defense has taken a step back, I would say. So I know they had a 13-sack performance against the Lions, but if you take away that game, their sacks are down, their pressures are down. I just don't think that they've had that great of a year. Denver just drafted Bradley Chubb, who's going to grow across from Von Miller. They have Chris Harris Jr. They have all this talent, What
do you think was the effect of, obviously Linval Joseph and Daniil Hunter are still in Minnesota, but, nobody remembers the fact that one of the biggest names on that defense, something happened to him early in the year, losing Everson Griffin, right? That might have had an effect too.
Yeah, they did get him back though. I wouldn't say he's playing at I've been watching I watch every game I can. And from what I've seen, I don't see them playing at the level they did last year. But I also have to chalk it up to, I don't think Mike Zimmer has been the play caller he has been, in recent years. I mean, he absolutely dominated Sean McVay in every meaning of the word last year. Whipped his butt. This year, it didn't even look like he knew how to stop Sean McVay's offense. So, you can chalk that up to Sean McVay, and rightfully so. But this is a defense that, when they're put in position, they can be nasty. I mean, they can be very scary. They run a lot of stunts. They do a lot of things to confuse young quarterbacks, and it just hasn't really worked this year. Now with Denver, I just feel like you have the offensive line. You found a stud in Connor McGovern. You found a stud in Paratus, the center, McGovern the guard. You draft Garrett Bowles, who I like a lot. And let's not forget the other guard that you signed, Ron Leary from Dallas Cowboys. So you put money into the offensive line, you find studs through the draft, and then you sign Case Keenum for 2 years. So now you can sign Case Keenum, you can compete for the playoffs, and after the end of the year, you can be looking at a Lamar Jackson level quarterback at the back of the first round, a guy that slips and falls into your hands. You know what I'm saying? So I just, that's the best way to do it, because you have Keenum for 2 years and you didn't spend a ton. I honestly like the way the Cardinals went about this with Sam Bradford. It blew up in their face, but that was exactly what I was thinking. You draft Sam Bradford, you draft Lamar Jackson, you draft Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold. You draft one of those guys, and that way you have Sam Bradford there to kind of ease the rebuilding process, or whatever, or keep yourself away from the rebuilding process. So I think that's really the key there for me. And I think that's the thing that, with Minnesota, I get it. They're going for it all. But I feel like they just didn't, they weren't thankful enough for what they had when they had Case Keenum come in after Sam Bradford went down with an injury. And they got lucky because he could have been bad, and instead he stepped up and he was like an MVP dark horse candidate. I remember us talking about that. So to get that production and then not bring him back in some capacity, I think you made a mistake, and I said that before the season.
Well, I think you got to weigh it against the dollars. It's one thing to, obviously a lot of people would think Kirk Cousins is better than Case Keenum, but, is Cousins at his contract a better value than Keenum at his contract? No. So, I think, they certainly haven't figured it out. They've probably taken a step back. We saw probably Cousins' best performance as a Viking came in the Coliseum, with that battered secondary and that crazy Thursday night game. And, they went into New England a couple weeks ago, New England team that just got, gave up 30 some odd points to the Dolphins. And the week before that, they scored 10 points against that Patriots defense. So, I think it's interesting. Last year I talked about the storyline in the NFC playoffs being any of those 6 teams can go. And now I think we're going to get to these playoffs, and it's going to be the 2 top seeds with a bunch of kind of upset minded. I think everybody's going to be betting Saints and Rams, and the other 4 teams are going to look like they're going to be there to kind of make up the playoffs and or what, so, or the other 16, whatever, however the math works out. But really it's it's funny, 1 year, it's just been a year, and so much has changed, and then again Carson Wentz is still hurt.
Yeah, it's true, and Aaron Rodgers is also hurt, or he got hurt. So it's another year with the Packers out of the, and I remember us talking about it last year. This was your opportunity. This is the thing that irked us the most about the Rams losing the first round, is this was your opportunity to win with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers not in the playoffs. And I don't know if you're going to get that done next year. And then this is the same team that goes and they beat Green Bay, and now they're probably not going to have to play Green Bay unless, crazy things, all the stars align and everything. But I think if the Rams don't make the NFC, if they don't become NFC champions and head to the Super Bowl, I think it's the Seattle Seahawks. I think, bold prediction, I think that team can beat anybody. They just apparently can't beat the Rams. But that doesn't mean, just because they haven't, beaten them yet, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't beat them in the third match.
Well, yeah. That is kind of scary, I'm sure, as a Rams fan.
You watch them against Minnesota.
Having to beat that team a third time.
And it's like, that defensive
made them look
performance.
Like a Pop Warner team.
That defensive performance is something else. They have stars. Frank Clark needs to be known by everybody. He is going to get paid. He's one of the best edge guys in the league right now. I think this defense, what they're doing, they're getting all this production out of these guys that were basically fill-ins for the post Legion of Boom era, and everyone was writing this off, including me, including probably you. I believe it was you. We were all writing this off.
It was definitely me. I wrote them off. So I wrote them off and I shut the book.
Yeah. I just, this is a team that it looked like the Rams were just, they destroyed in Seattle last year. It looked like that was like, they killed the king. They pushed him off the mountaintop.
Yeah. Todd Gurley ran him out of the gym.
And while the Rams did that, it felt, it was definitely a passing of the torch. Seattle is still Seattle's the Chargers and the Rams are the Chiefs. They're right there. They're lurking. they're not going to win the division. It's already clinched, but Seattle is that thorn in your side, and man, I mean, any team that has to play them in the playoffs, they're getting a team that's probably a 3 or 4 seed in the AFC. 2 or 3 or 4. Like, they could beat anybody right now. They're very hot. And I think the thing about Seattle is when you have a quarterback that's already done it in Russell Wilson. I mean, that he's already won a Super Bowl. He's already gone through all this. He threw 5 interceptions in a playoff game and still won the game. I mean, we've seen it. We've really seen it all. I can't stand Pete Carroll because being a Rams fan, obviously he's annoying, and being a USC fan, I feel like he abandoned USC with a bunch of violations and screwed them, up for the next bunch of years. Mm-hmm. But he's a hell of a coach. He's one of the best, easily. I mean, honestly, Sean McVay is my coach of the year. I would honestly say Pete Carroll has surpassed Nagy. And I know it sounds crazy coming off of, Nagy beating McVay, but I got to tell you, Pete Carroll absolutely deserves Coach of the Year considerations. I mean, what he's done with this roster is just unbelievable.
Yeah, he's, I think that primetime game on Monday kind of woke up kind of the neutral fan that maybe wasn't quite aware of what they had done, maybe people on the West Coast and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think, certainly that's going to be in the discussion. It's probably the team. I got asked on a national radio show recently, who should Rams fans be concerned about playing, Dallas, Chicago, or somebody else was in the Eagles in the playoffs. And, it was before the Eagles lost, obviously. And I was like, it's none of those teams. It's your division rival. It's the Seahawks. And, but again, this is not last year's playoffs where, any of these 6 teams can go. I think it's, it's really the Rams and Saints ball game. And in that situation, number 1 seed is going to be paramount. And, that's why the Rams got to win this game on Sunday to keep pressure on the Saints and hope the Panthers do you solid.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's part of me that just feels like the Steelers are going to get it done. I feel like they're going to lose to New England, and they're going to be very, 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 very desperate, and they're going to be looking down and seeing this young Lamar Jackson, leading the Ravens. They just benched Joe Flacco, so they're going to look at him. I mean, I don't think he plays Tampa Bay. That's a win. I mean, it has to be a win. So, I think the Steelers are going to be desperate, and I think desperate teams, a team like that, to wake them up, I mean, that could be...
Dude, the Steelers have been a mess. Haven't they lost like 2-3 games in a row now?
They lost the Raiders. You can stop at the 2 or 3. They lost
to the Raiders and the Chargers. They lost to the Raiders. They blew a multiple touchdown lead against the Chargers at home on Sunday night. So, the Patriots could, really knock them down a peg and put them kind of in a tailspin. So it's funny. We've been waiting for this Steelers team to take all that talent and do something with it. And if they don't snap out of it soon, they're never going to be in a position to do that.
It's worrisome.
Big Ben's getting older. They're losing Le'Veon. Connor is beat up. Guy that can withstand a full season. The defense is a freaking mess. So, believe me, as a Rams fan, you would much rather be in the AFC right now, even though the Chargers are coming on and, everybody's talking about the Chiefs and Brady is still in New England.
The AFC doesn't really have a defense that scares me. I think the Patriots with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, you can never count them out. That dynamic.
They have no talent on defense.
Yeah, but the scheming and just I don't think you can ever count out the Patriots. But I feel like Houston's a little overrated. I think they were everyone was proving that when they lost to the Colts at home. the same Colts team that couldn't score a point against the Jaguars, who then were blown up by Derrick Henry. So
was ridiculous.
I look at the NFC and I'm like, well, okay, the AFC has the Ravens, and I just can't stop giving them credit. I think that they're probably the scariest team in the AFC because we don't know how good they can be.
They're the AFC Seahawks.
Yeah,
they are.
I used to say the Chargers, but how can the Chargers be? They have 11 wins. They're telling you they're good. Yeah. They're telling you they're here to stay. They're telling you that
the Chargers. The Chargers are a tiebreaker from having the bye, right? The Chiefs still have that tiebreaker now, right?
I mean, the Chargers would have the most wins in football right now if they didn't lose that dumb game against Denver. Yeah. I mean, did they fall asleep? I mean, I still don't know how they lost that game. I just don't know. But their 3 losses are Denver, Rams, Chiefs. So that's saying a lot. But yeah, I think the Ravens, when you look at that defense, I mean, you don't know how good they're going to be when Lamar Jackson finally gets hold of this offense. I mean, he's just kind of coasting right now. They're gonna have to get him prepared for the playoffs because they're gonna use him, and he's gonna be a problem if a team doesn't, they're not able to really, game plan for him. I mean, you've seen it. They really gave Kansas City a run for their money. But yeah. Going back to the NFC, I mean, Dallas, Seattle, I think those two are nasty. Chicago is not getting enough credit by me right now. So, I've been all over Chicago for a while, so.
Getting back to this game, what is the worst case scenario? What has to happen for this Eagle team, to come in and really upset the apple cart on Sunday night?
They don't have anything. That's the issue. They don't have an Eddie Jackson. They don't have a Kyle Fuller. They don't have a Khalil Mack.
Right.
And that's the thing. We can talk about these players all we want. Michael Bennett's good. Fletcher Cox is probably the only one that I would say is a legit game changer. They have guys like Timmy Jernigan that are kind of, the glue guys of the defense. I'm not scared of Haloti Ngata. They've been giving up huge passing numbers. One of the weaker passing defenses in football, and you can't bring that into the Coliseum. And Jared Goff's a completely
and expect
different
to get out alive
at home than on the road, which he has to improve at. But he's home, so
Well, that's a storyline too. I mean, Jared Goff bouncing back from his worst performance since Jeff Fisher was fired, and that's a big deal. How is he going to respond, to that beatdown in Chicago, and how's this Rams offense going to bounce back from? They're going to have spent the week looking at themselves in the mirror and self-scouting, and getting back at it because. Obviously they were humbled last week, and we'll see how they respond.
Yeah, to me, in a loss, you're going to learn more about yourself than you do in a win. And the Rams learned in their Saints loss that they can be in any game. They can come back from any deficit, and they missed to keep Talib. In this loss, they had it all. They had everything. Everyone's healthy. We're not talking about guys that weren't on the roster, to start the season. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is out, but pretty much everyone's healthy. This just came down to, a few guys that were really just not making enough plays to help the team. I mean, obviously the offensive line, Goff, Josh Reynolds was very disappointing. I thought on the Hail Mary, something that I forgot to mention, Hail Mary, 6'3" Josh Reynolds, I thought could have done a better job at tracking the ball and making a play on. I mean, that could have been, that's a game-changing play. They didn't score a touchdown that game. He does that going into the, halftime, and there you go. They score right before halftime. They can go 2 for 1.
Well, yeah, Josh had a couple down moments. He had the juggle going out of bounds in the first, potentially one of their bigger plays of the night. He took a conversion and a drive starter away from Goff, and that hurt that drive. So yeah, he there's a lot of guys on that offense that will need a bounce back game on Sunday.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I think this is the game to do it. The Rams also, they need to bounce back on the defense, and the defense was almost all. I mean, they were terrific for the most part, but they did give up a lot of yards. And to be honest, I think that was the game plan. We're going to give up a ton of yards on the ground because we're going to put an emphasis on Trubisky. And they made him uncomfortable, and he threw 3 interceptions because of it. Offense wasn't able to do its thing, and that hurt. The thing in this one is the Eagles with Nick Foles, with Josh Adams, with Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate. I mean, they have names. Again, they just don't have like a Todd Gurley or somebody on offense that to like absolutely break this game open, which is why the Eagles' best opportunity. I mean, they could, if the Rams just forget how to play defense and offense at home, sure. I mean, anybody can win in that regard. But I just think the worst case scenario is the Rams would win an ugly 9-6 game where it's just nothing goes, correctly on offense. And, this is the absolute worst case scenario, Joe, like where, it's the same thing. They can't really move the ball. And when they do, they, just things don't go right. And that ends up being a defensive battle. But really what I see here is it's going to end up being, I think the Rams are going to score 40 plus, and I think the Eagles are going to end up in the 10s to 20s. I think I would go right now with a 42-17 score. I do think the Rams blow them out. I think the Eagles will start going with Josh Adams early on in the run game, and I just don't think that I think the Rams will have a hard time stopping him originally, but the Rams will make their usual second half adjustments, stop the run, and then Nick Foles is really going to have to fling it down the field. And in that case, I do think this team got pretty much on a roll last week with 3 turnovers. I think they're going to do it again. 2-3 turnovers on Foles. I do think that they will be able to force him into situations. This is a game, that Eagles fans were hoping they wouldn't have to play because as an Eagles fan, you're probably rooting for the Rams against the Bears. You're probably hoping that you're not going to play a Rams team coming off a loss, especially like that. I just don't, it's like the Patriots. Great coaches get their teams prepared so they don't make the same mistake twice. Bill Belichick has an unbelievable record after they've lost a game. Like, I forget what it is, but it's like they rarely lose back-to-back games. Sean McVay doesn't lose back-to-back games very often either. I don't believe he ever has with the Rams. So, this is not a back-to-back loss. This is also not a back-to-back Sunday Night Football loss. And, again, at home, Sunday Night Football, I just think, it's gonna go the Rams' way. I'm not entirely worried about it, Joe. I think it should be a fun game. It should also be a game that probably gets people back on the Rams train, because I know a lot of people are jumping off that bandwagon, hopping on to Seattle or hopping on to mainly Chicago, who apparently won the Super Bowl on Sunday. But, I do think, overall, this team is going to bounce back in a major way, and then they have some pretty easy games, Arizona and San Francisco.
Yeah, the Rams have not had back-to-back losses under Sean McVay. I can confirm that. The Patriots have had back-to-back losses just once since 2012.
Oh my God.
And good teams don't lose
Since
back-to-back games.
That's
so
insane.
Yeah. So I do think it's a potential for the Rams to really put up, for the passing game to get back in order, for them to put up a bunch of points, and really get that momentum going back. And then you look at the next couple of games you're playing. 2 of the worst teams in football these next couple of weeks. So you get this game, you keep the pressure on the Saints. Maybe there's a position where your seeding becomes solidified, and we'll see if they take that Week 17 off again. But all in all, I think we're on the same page for this weekend. The Eagles are going to take the field for the final time as defending Super Bowl champions with a chance to defend their title, and the Rams get a chance to stick a fork in them.
Yeah, because that 6-8, it starts to become bleak. I think they lose many of.
It's pretty bleak now.
Well, it is pretty bleak now,
Yeah.
but I think they lose a lot of those tiebreakers to teams that have 8 losses. So, I mean, did they lose to the Giants? I feel like they did.
Did the Eagles?
Yeah, I feel like they lost to the Giants.
I'll check
I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because when you get into those tiebreakers, and this goes back to the whole.
I mean, the Giants aren't making the playoffs.
Hey, don't hate on my dream.
Jamon. I love Jamon, but it's not happening.
We'll do it for Jamon.
They beat the Giants the weekend of Thanksgiving, and they swept the Giants this year. The Eagles' losses are to Tampa that second week when
Tampa's got some.
when Foles was
big
still a
wins.
quarterback. Tennessee, Minnesota, Carolina, Dallas, Saints, Dallas. So they don't have too many tiebreakers, dude. They're 0-2 against Dallas. Don't have that tiebreaker.
They don't even have it against some Vikings.
They lost.
Wow.
Lost to the Vikings. Lost to the Panthers. They're toast.
This is it.
So
this is literally it for the Eagles. They absolutely have to win this game, which is why, again, I think they'll give it their best fight.
No, they have to win. They have to win out.
Well, yeah, but if they don't want to be toast week 15, they're gonna have to win this game. So, you go week by week when you're on the fringe. Trust me, I know, being a Rams fan my whole life and having to, try to. It was always funny when my friends like, "Hey, you want to do something fun? Put the Rams in the playoffs in their playoffs machine." I was just like, "Wow, this is
the Eagles." The Eagles at this moment are 13% chance to make the playoffs at 6-7. They're behind the Redskins. Wait a second. I'm sorry. These are old numbers.
Is Josh Johnson going to lead the Redskins to the playoffs?
No, these are old numbers. Let's see. Is there an updated? Hang on. Great radio. Yeah, it's yeah, it is. Those are right. Cowboys 99%, Redskins 15%, Eagles 13%, Vikings 52%. 52%. Anyway,
I don't know. I mean, it's a weird year. I feel like everyone's beating up on each other, and the AFC. It's you look at the Chargers, and they're making a case as to why there shouldn't be, it should just be the top 6 teams in order and not necessarily the divisions. I mean, you're going to have, quite frankly, a 12-13 win team, as the 5th seed.
In this group again, the Rams are 17% chance to win the Super Bowl in this group of probabilities.
Interesting.
So that's a better percentage than the Patriots. Better percentage than the Chiefs. So only the Saints have a better likelihood to win the Super Bowl.
Interesting.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we will. And for the X Factors, Joe, the Eagles, I think you really have to watch out for, Brian Westbrook. He can really hurt you on the ground, and I think I think you're gonna have to look out for Terrell Owens, Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson, Kevin Curtis. I think they can really bust open.
Buddy Ryan's defense is really tough to deal with.
That's right. And then, to me, just the key of this game, I don't.
Stephen A. Ellenbogen.
The key is this game. I mean, does Sheldon Brown get his big time hit on a running back like the way he did to Steven Jackson, or does Lito Shepherd get that game winning interception? Like I don't know. Brian Dawkins, like they have a lot of talent here. I mean, Hugh Douglas.
Yeah, over the course of 80 years.
You know?
Yeah.
Hugh Douglas.
No, you're making your point.
So
well, that's a great. I will say this: Rams Eagles is a great matchup. That traditional matchup that goes back, decades and decades and decades. So it's another edition of for great memories and two great franchises, and so it's for me. It's tough to give real X factors in a game where Nick Foles is coming off the bench. You haven't seen him in months. I mean, I think you can't get beyond just what are they going to do? How are they going to, are they going to be able to go back to what they did in the playoffs last year, use some of that stuff? I'm sure Sean McVay is watching Eagles, Falcons, Eagles, Patriots, all that stuff that Foles ran. But you're going to have to reinstall that stuff over a week. It's just that's to be the biggest X factor is what are they going to run offensively with Nick Foles? How much things change? Is it going to shake loose into place any of these misshapen pieces? Between the running backs, between Golden Tate and Alshon Jeffrey's lost a couple months, and they're just a mess offensively, and I think it's hard to figure out what they're going to look like. So yeah, I mean, I think this entire game is just one enormous X, and I think you just go back to the fact that the Eagles are just not going to be able to defend the Rams in the passing game, and so Bobby Woods, Brandon Cooks, and Jared Goff get off the schneid, get back going, and they'll win handily.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Austin Davis Nick Foles rematch though. So. No, I listen to every word you said. Oh man, I can't. For those of you who don't know, just look up the Stephen A. video.
Stephen A. Smith.
He mentioned Hunter Henry, who was the first injury of the year, and how well he's been playing in 2018. How Derek Johnson was going to cover him, and he's a free agent. And he was adamant, Spencer Ware was going to be a key playmaker, and they had already ruled him out. So,
I like how Max Kellerman corrected him
instantly.
But
it's like he's out.
Just kind of let him die the rest of the way.
He's out, and then the video's made. Max Kellerman's face I thought was funny, but Teddy Bruschi in the middle, he just looks like he's breaking, or like he just looked at Medusa and he was turning to stone. Like it just.
It's like, can I get paid? It looked like, can I get paid in cash? Like nobody who would pay these guys to be on the air saying this stuff is going to have checks that will actually cash. So can I get paid? Can I get paid in cash? Because anyway. Everyone has. And then like we said on Twitter, when you had originally sent that to me, everybody has bad days. There's times when I don't make the most sense. There's times when I write off the future Super Bowl champions, the moment Carson Wentz goes down and Nick Foles comes in, and I laugh and say they never have a chance to make the Super Bowl. And not only do they make the Super Bowl, they score 40 some odd points against the Patriots. So congratulations to Bill Belichick and keeping Malcolm Butler on the sidelines. So great.
I mean, I'm also if we're doing a little self scouting segment. I mean. I'm also the one that said, Deshaun Watson should switch to running back.
That's a good one too.
Well, I mean, it's we all have our little quirks here and there. It's just to.
Well, he was compared to Vince Young coming out of Clemson, so you weren't the only one.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know that. I guess there's some dumb ones out there. I'm sure I would have to think of it. Oh, I thought Josh Doxson was going to end up being like a superstar receiver.
Well, I liked him too. I liked him too. Yeah, but then again, everybody coming, lot of receivers coming out of the Big 12 struggle to. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll save the draft talk for 2019. At least when I'm on this thing. You don't want to hear.
Speaking of draft talk,
yeah, go ahead. There's
perfect segue into a little podcast interview, because I haven't had one of those in a while. It's just been Joe and I kind of holding the fort down, and Blaine stopping by. But we're gonna be getting some guests for the playoffs. Maybe some Charles Davis in there, and just some guys are pretty busy. So I'm gonna try to get who I can, but gonna make the playoff podcast something special. But before we get to that, we have to finish this podcast. And before we finish it up, please give a warm welcome and a listen to our first interview of the draft season. I know you guys aren't really ready, but I interviewed Kwadarrius Smith he's the wide receiver from Akron, and he was awesome. He is the fastest man in college football, ran a 4.1. He's fast, and you can tell. I don't know how fast he's going to run, when he gets up to the draft process, but he's a humble kid. He's ready to work, and here is the interview with Quad Smith. All right, guys. Joining me is my first pre-draft prospect of the year. It's going to be the 2018 season, so I'm glad I was able to do it before 2019. Really honored to have Kwadarrius Smith of Akron on. He's the fastest man in college football. How's it going, Kwadarrius? Thanks for joining the show.
It's going all right, man. Going all right. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Always a pleasure to we've been talking for a little bit. We actually, our paths crossed when I put together an underrated list, and you commented to be like, I'll be right up there. And so ever since, I reached out pretty recently, and yeah, we've been connected over Twitter. So pretty awesome. I appreciate you being so down to earth.
Sir, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, before we get into everything, you are the fastest man in college football. So I want to know, I'm sure my listeners want to know, how fast can you run? And please don't just say that you could beat me in a race, because I think anybody could beat me in a race.
Yeah. I have a PR in the 100-meter of 10.29. I ran that last spring. This past spring, actually, that just flew by. In the 100-meter at the MAC championship, and I had sports center surgery the winter, this past winter, the one I just passed this year. So I ran a 61, so I ran a 672. So my 40, I've been clocked my fastest at a 4.28. But like I said, man, I'm blessed. God has really blessed me to have the speed and to showcase it and to use it to be a platform to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do they call you Hermes? What do they call you? I mean, what's your nickname?
They call me Quad.
I like it.
There's no special nickname. Quad is my nickname, and it's been my nickname since I was been young. So, yeah, that's about it. Nothing special to it, man. Just the abbreviation of the name.
I like it. I like how, it's not taco or anything like out there like that. So, it goes with your name. No, I think it's cool. Yeah. So, you've been through, early on, you've been through some humble beginnings. I read an article of yours, going back to, I think it was 2013. I could be wrong. But, you were actually interviewed after. It said the interview you clocked at a 4.1, and you were interviewed to see if you got any college scholarships, and you as humble as possible said no, sir. I have not, and what was that whole process like? Early on in your football career.
Well, like I said, I've been playing football since I was like 8 years old. I was going to Pop Warner and stuff. Everyone's same skill set, pretty much. Everyone's out there killing. High school, I was a little small and a little smaller size, 152 pounds, about 5'8". So a lot of D1 programs did not want to take a swing at me. I was just too small. They didn't think my skill set was up to par yet. And they thought that since I went to a small school that I didn't play anybody. So I was just doing that to those kids. So when I got to the next level, it wouldn't translate. The way I played against those kids wouldn't translate the way I would play with the other kids in college. So no coach wanted to take a chance at me. And it was all part of God's plan and where I am now. I'm not. I wouldn't have wanted any other way to the process, because like I said, there's a reason for everything. God has a plan for everything, and He might not be there when you want Him, but He's always on time. And I felt like He was not on time. Me accepting a scholarship for track to University of Missouri, and then using that time to develop, getting my speed faster and getting a tad bit bigger to come to University of Akron and showcase my talent. So, it was a very, very rough college recruiting years for me. It wasn't easy. And if I was a coach, maybe I'll look at that too. Maybe, hey, the guy's too small. He goes to a small school. But what I was trying to explain to those coaches were my heart was bigger than 152 pounds, bigger than 5'8", 152 pounds. My heart was bigger than any team in the SEC, any team in the MAC, any team, So I was trying to get that through every college coach, but everyone has their opinion. And like I said, man, everything happens for a reason, and God set me down for a reason. So I'm very grateful for the experience. I wouldn't do anything to take it back.
Yeah, and with something like that, I feel like you either have one or two different ways of looking at it. I mean, you could look at it where for the rest of your career, however long you're playing football, you'll have that chip on your shoulder, or you'll look at it as more of like a learning experience. Like, hey, not everything is meant to be how you want it to be. You have to work hard for it. Where are you in between those two? Do you feel like this is more of a chip on the shoulder, or do you feel like you learned a lot from this and not necessarily hold anything against it?
Since I was, I guess, 2 or 3 years old, I've always had rough beginnings, and out of foster care, my parents not being there for me, people not being there for me. I've always had a chip on my shoulder. So if you ask me, it was being God against the world, and I've always had a chip on my shoulder, man, where I've always had to be the best, and I've always had to grind for what I want. So no matter if somebody thinks I'm too good or not good enough, I'm going to always go out for what I want. Because any given day, somebody can take your spot or you could take theirs. So it's just like, you got to stand, you feel me? You got to stand strong, stand tall, you know what I'm saying, and just do what you do. So as far as having a chip on my shoulder, I'm going to always have a chip on my shoulder. Because, like I said, man, those years in the foster care and just those lonely nights, man, those sad and emotional nights, you can't make up for those. There's no way. The only way you can make up for those is doing what you could do for yourself, not what other people want you to do, but you should want to succeed for yourself. Should nobody ever say that, oh, I want to be mediocre, I want to be average. You should always want to get up every morning and just grind. No matter how good you are, no matter how good you make it, or how good you have it, or if you have it bad, show the world why you deserve everything. And that's one of the things. I just showed the world that I'm deserving everything they have to offer, And it's like this. We all have to believe in ourselves because somebody out there believes in you. So as long as you have that mentality, you should always have a chip on your shoulder. It's always personal to me. It's never about business. So that's the way I think about it every time I step on that field or I have, doubts and people doubting me. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to look at it, 100%. And if you were meeting with a coach or an executive right now, that's exactly what they, the type of answer that they'd want to hear. With that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about your season. Obviously, it didn't go the way you guys planned. I mean, you guys were you were a bowl team last year. This year, you go 4-8, but you had a really, I would say this is pretty much the highlight of the season. You beat the Buffalo Bulls, who had a huge year. They were really good this year in the MAC, and you guys knocked them off. Overall, what do you take from this season? Because, I'll bring up an example, since this is normally a Rams podcast, and it's like Rams, and then I bring in draft prospects and whatnot. But Jared Goff, you probably know Jared Goff. I mean, he's the number one overall pick. He goes to the Rams. He started at Cal. People forget they went 1-11. And he still will bring that up to this day. It made him stronger and everything. How do you look? Do you look at it more like that, where, a season like this that was harder for you guys, you'll always remember that, and you'll just completely build off of that? Or how do you go about looking at that, especially it being your last season with Akron?
Man, hey, what a hell of a group of young men you talk about when you speak of the Akron Zips. Built that brotherhood and built that bond with these guys. And those guys will be my brothers forever. Those guys, they will be some of the best friends I have for the rest of my life. The season didn't go as planned, First game, got canceled against Nebraska. They went to play Morgan State, beat Morgan State pretty good. And then went to play Northwestern, knocked them off, upset. And then, from there on, we played Iowa State. And from the Iowa State game on, we had some struggles. We had a young offensive line who did an amazing job at the talent level that they showed, and at being young. And we have a lot of sophomores and freshmen, redshirt freshmen on that offensive line. They did the best they could. Quarterback went down for a couple games, and he's been battling some issues and still tugging through it, playing on a sprained ankle, knee messed up. We had our, just ups and downs the whole season. People hurt on defense. I was out of a game. I had a concussion. And our starting safety, Alvin Davis, he was out for a game. He had a concussion. We were out the same game. We didn't play Buffalo, and we lost that game. And it was just like, what do you do? It's all part of God's plan. Like you said, you can't beat it. Maybe it's happened for a reason. This happened, same situation happened to us 2 years ago when they had a hurt quarterback and everyone was hurt, and we went 5-7. Last year, we came back, went 7-7, won the MAC championship. Won the MAC East, went to a MAC championship, and went to a bowl game the first time in 12 years to go to a MAC championship. So like I said, man, it's always regression. You never know what God's got stirring. Maybe next year, those guys will do greater. They might win the most games in Akron history. I think they can go undefeated. They're really talented. And so with that being said, man, I wouldn't trade that season for anything. It was a learning experience, and being a senior, doing all I could have done, with what we were dealt with, I felt like we fought and we did all we can. So, yeah, man, love those guys, man, and I will not forget the bond we had, man. Love everybody on that team. Love everything about it. So.
No, that's awesome, man. I know you're looking to be the first receiver drafted from Akron since Dominic Hickson played for the Giants. I know they signed, I believe the Giants actually signed Jerome Lane, who also, he played at Akron. I'm not sure if he played with you or not. I feel like he did. But
we played together, yeah, for 2 years.
Yes. And Jerome Lane, he signed on as a UDFA with the Giants. The bottom line is you obviously just have to figure out a way to make it in the league. After that, doesn't really matter. Your role could be way different than what it was in college. But I want to bring up something interesting, because when I was looking at your stuff going back to high school, I noticed you played cornerback, you played running back, you played wide receiver, you returned kicks and punts. To me, that brought up one thing that's going on in the NFL right now. New Orleans Saints, they have a quarterback who played, I believe, at BYU. His name is Taysom Hill. And he runs, he throws, he catches passes. He just blocked a punt last week. Do you feel, if you're not given, the stereotypical wide receiver role, in the NFL at first, do you feel you could catch on as a Swiss Army knife as a runner? Maybe play cornerback, maybe be blocking punts, returning kicks, being a receiver. Like, could you be in that role? Could you be the next Taysom Hill per se?
Well, I like to say I'm Quad Smith. I'm the type of person to sacrifice. I'll do any and everything those coaches want me to do. Whatever allows my team to be successful and to take us to that next level, to get to a Super Bowl, to win a division title, I'm able to do anything and everything they want me to do at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we're a team, and the team is a lot like life, People say football builds character, and it doesn't. It reveals character, So that says a lot about you as a person. When you're a dad, and you got to go out and you don't have a college degree, and you got to go out and cut 1,000 yards to make $800, that's less than $1 a yard. Would you do it so that your kids have a place to stay? It's kind of one of those things, sacrifice. So I'm going to sacrifice for my team, man. Whatever they want me to do, they need me to play corner. If they need me to block kick, if they need me to be a blocker on punt, anything that they allow me to do to help the team and they want me to do to help the team, I will do. And that's just from the bottom of my heart, man. Speaking of that earlier, like I said, in high school, I had to do that. Went to a smaller school. My senior year, we didn't have the talent we had my junior year when we went to state semis to the Final Four. So I had to put the team on my back and played everything. I was cramping, and by the end of the second quarter, early third quarter, I was cramping because I played so many downs. So it was a fun experience and an experience to know what type of leader that I should have been. I'm not really a vocal leader. I'm the type of guy that if you watch my highlights or if you watch, just me on the field, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to talk too much, not a big halftime talker guy, not a big before the game talker guy. I'm just going to do it, So that's like God has definitely put you the ability to do that. I look back on it and he's prepared me for situations like this because, man, the things that I've been through and translated to football, it shows, and I'll never fold. I'll do anything and everything to win. And if that means they told me to go out there and block that punt or go out there and be a gunner, run that guy down, go on kickoff and be a missile, run the guy down from the back and hit him, I will do that by any means necessary. By any means necessary.
Yeah, to me, I think that is one. I mean, obviously, that's a great answer. But two, it's not even a bad thing. More so, I brought up Taysom Hill because when you look at the NFL, I feel like it's evolving. Quad, I really do. I think coaches are starting to be less stubborn, starting to put players where anywhere they can contribute, not necessarily just the stars or anything like that. And I think that's really the key. I think you're going into potentially a league that could give you a serious opportunity. Obviously, we've seen some of the most talented college players fall in the wrong system or situation, locker room, whatever. But obviously, I think that would be probably a great start. Obviously, you want to be a special teamer immediately when you go in the NFL at any point. But, I mean, you're not a slouch either as a receiver. I mean, you're one of the fastest guys probably once you enter the league. You're the fastest guy in college football. I'm interested to see what the 4-1 ends up translating to. Like, because to me, when you say you were at the combine, I know they always snub guys that deserve to be there. So I'm not saying you'll necessarily. I mean, Shaquem Griffin wasn't even going to be there, and he ended up breaking the record. But say you ran the combine. I just feel like that 40 time is always off. So I just like to see, all the hand times and what people would have you at. But regardless, during your career, you have 73 catches, 1,411 yards, and 11 touchdowns. I mean, what do you feel you have to work on to improve at the next level? Because obviously, the production's there. I don't think you were used nearly as much as you wanted to or nearly as much as you should have been. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there. For the time that you were used, the production was there. So, and, what are your thoughts on that? Like, you need to improve on?
Any other player, anybody can improve. I personally, I need to work on everything. I need to get bigger, stronger, and much faster. I need to run better routes. I need to catch the ball better. I need to do everything better. Everything that I need to do, everything that I do in general, I need to do better. So they say, "Oh, you catch the ball good." No, I need to do better at catching the ball. I gotta get to the point where I catch the ball so good and fast that I can get up the field right now and go make a play right after catch. Oh, you run a great slant route? No, I don't run a great slant route. I want to learn how to do this so I create more separation. So it's just things that you can improve on every day. So like I said, I'm not complacent, and I'm trying to better myself every day. So what I need to improve on is everything that I don't do well, which is pretty much everything that a receiver needs to do, I need to do better. No matter, because think about it. You could have a great release off the line, but the next play have an awful release at the line, Maybe you need to work on great releases in every type of look, So it's just like I said, man, it is what you make it. And what I'm going to make it is basically what I need to get done is what I'm going to need to get done. What I need to improve on is and that's everything as a receiver. And like I said, I'm grateful enough to admit that, and I'm pretty sure every other team will tell you that. I'm pretty sure you see Jarvis Leonard, Odell Beckham, those guys are working. Odell Beckham has some of the greatest hands I've ever seen, any of us have ever seen. But, it doesn't come overnight. He's practicing that thing hard. He's on a jug machine, catching with one hand. He's doing footwork drills to make quick moves, to stop on a dime and stuff like that. So anything as a receiver that you do good, you can always do better.
Yeah, and, you bring up guys that I would call rack monsters, run after the catch monsters. I mean, these guys, they know how to set themselves up for the next step in the play. And once you receive the ball over the field, I mean, regardless if you're going to get hit or not, a lot of what these run after the catch guys do is they put themselves in the best position, not really sacrificing their body to try and get the extra yards. Do you feel like you're that type of receiver right now? And if not, do you feel like you can become that receiver?
I definitely improved over the years. I've definitely had some good runs after catches. I think that I need to get on those guys' level. Jarvis Landry, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham. I need to get on that level of run after catch. So it's like every time they touch the ball, whether they get a hitch or a screen, 10, 12, maybe 15, 20 yards after a catch or play, And I think training this offseason for the NFL Combine and Pro Day, I feel like training this for that will definitely get me there. I'm going to be training that Tom Shaw sports performance. And those guys are going to do a great job, man. Every year, those guys, they have some of the top people come out and run fast, look good, run great route. So I believe them over there, they're going to get me to that point where I'm faster and getting upfield. So, yeah, man, I definitely need to work on that. And I'm going to improve much more, just like I did this year. So that's what I'm harping on, is that right after the catch. It's really going to have teams like, man, that guy right there right after the catch, his separation, everything good. That way they have no reason to let me go. And everyone has something to work on, but as a speed receiver, that's what they want you to do. They want you to catch that ball and you play nobody. It's like nobody. So you just got to go out there and be that Tyreek Hill, or be that Odell, or be that Jarvis Landry, Stephon Diggs. Those guys just go out. They practice that, and it shows. so I'm just going to work hard, continue to work on that, and build myself from there.
I really like it, and I like that you brought up Tyreek Hill. I think that you could really, I mean, I know it sounds funny, you could be Tyreek Hill, but I mean, Tyreek Hill went to Western Alabama. You know, like that's the thing. Like, you know, these guys come out of nowhere. I mean, Adam Thielen, I'm pretty sure he went to a community college in Minnesota. You know, Philip Lindsay went to Colorado and everyone forgot about him and he went undrafted. You know, there are plenty of guys. And I think that's more so, you know, you can do your job, but unless you're getting the opportunities, people won't notice. And that's also, you know, part of the balance where you have to make sure that you're doing your job, but you also have to make sure you're in the right situation. And sometimes you kind of have to ride the storm. You know, with that being said, what do you compare, or who would you compare your game to right at this moment, if you could?
Let's see. Right now, I feel like I can compare my game to probably John Brown. He went to a Pittsburgh State. It was a D1AA in Kansas. You know, they had doubts about him when he got drafted. He went out there, put it wrong, ran great route, speed guy, fast. He ran a 4.30. You know, from South Florida over here, so he's around my way. I can compare myself to him. And as far as return-wise, you know, he had great film at return. I didn't really have much at return, but I can definitely return. I am a good returner. So, you know, with players in the league, that's who I look to compare myself to. Because he was an underdog like I was an underdog, went to the combine, ran a 4.3 flat, and just killed everything out there. All the drills, the routes, everything. And so he proved everybody wrong, went to the league, did good. So now he's with the Cardinals, and he's continuing to be successful. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy that I would definitely look up to say that we're alike.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, your speed is, I mean, that's probably the top, but you obviously do have other skills. What else would you say you're really good at this point?
I don't think I'm really good at anything, but I do think I'm great at a lot of things. I think that I've gotten better with my release up the line, setting the DB up to go one way, some one way and still going that way. I've gotten better at checking the ball. I'm going to get it by any means necessary. So I've gotten better at a lot of things. Like I said, as receivers, man, we can get better every day. So I got a lot of things to still get better at. But like I said, yeah, I've gotten better at that point. I think I'm good at a lot of things, but I could definitely be better. And just humble beginnings, man. Because when I first got to Akron, man, I'm not gonna lie, you thought I was playing volleyball. I couldn't catch a cold. And now it's like I'm transferring to this guy that can actually make some plays and get out there and help my team. And I did it, and they're grateful for that, and I'm grateful that they stood by me. And like I said, man, I'm grateful for the experience that these guys allowed me to have. And thank you, University of Akron, for that.
Yeah, no, that's very very important to have that mindset. And you know, one last thing before we close it up here. What are your pre-draft plans like? You know, getting ready for this April.
Well, right now, I got invited to the Tropical Bowl like 2-3 days ago. So I'm going to play in that bowl. I'll probably, if I get an NFLPA East-West Shrine game, I'm going to accept one of those. If I get a Senior Bowl, I'm definitely going to accept that. Right now, I'm just going to train my butt off, man, try to get bigger, stronger, and faster, and, you know, just have that mindset of wanting to go get it every day, knowing what I come through, knowing what it's going to take to get to that next level. It is not going to be easy. I'm a guy from Akron that's been overlooked all his life, and I know that for me and a couple of my teammates in the draft, it's not going to be easy because we come from a team that didn't do so hot this year, but we have a lot of talent. So we just got to work. That's all it comes down to is work. Who wants it more? And I definitely want it more. And I'm going to show the scouts and everybody that I want it and how bad I want it. So I'm just going to be training my butt off, man, becoming a better person physically, mentally, and spiritually, and growing in my faith and just keeping God close and just trying to be a better person in general, on and off the field.
That sounds like a plan, man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. We'll stay in touch throughout this whole process, and if you need anything, I'm here, man. I'm a fan for life, and I hope to see you in Horns possibly.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Quad. You take care.
You too.
All right, guys. That is going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. That was Quad Smith. Joe Curley is still with me, so we are going to sign off. Until next time, this has been another Downtown Rams podcast, and we hope you guys enjoy. This is actually the first week, Joe, before we head out, first week of football on Saturday for the NFL anyway. So Saturday football.
I knew it was the most wonderful time of the year for a reason.
There we go. And that's also a reminder. So, like, if you're listening to this on a Saturday, get your lineup ready because you don't want to lose the fantasy playoffs because you didn't get your lineup ready because you didn't know there's football on Saturday. So don't be lazy. Get that done. All right, guys. Later.